Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, it's always a pleasure to have you along for the experience. And we have a sponsorship this week, anonymous, as a schus for the donors. Mitzvah Hashem, they should get a big schus from participating in being able to be marbitz Torah and goodwill and just good feeling for our Klal Yisrael. There are people who watch this podcast for the little bits of Torah that happen to seep in, and there are those who do it because it just makes them feel good. Puts a smile on their face. What could be better than that? Yeah. So that's wonderful. I want to continue the series that I've been doing, which is picking out lines from Mishnayos at random in different prakim of Pirkei Avos. And like I say, when I run out, I may just start again. There's so much to say. My gosh, I haven't even scratched the surface. And we're up now to Perek Daled, and I thought I would start with the first Mishnah. And I'll tell you why after I read it for you. Who is wise? Someone who learns from everybody. Who's strong? Someone who overcomes his nature. Who's rich? Someone who's happy with what he has. And who is honored? He who honors other people. Okay. 4 aspects. Strength, wealth, wisdom, and honor. And in each one, the Mishnah gives a definition. And the definition seems slightly counterintuitive, because I would say like this: who's rich? Someone who has a lot of money. You want to pick a number? In today's numbers, 40 billion, 50 billion. I'd say it's doing okay. I would say that person's rich. You want to lower it? Yeah, 100 million, 10 million, whatever it is, just say if you have a certain amount, then you're considered rich. The Mishnah discusses what's poor. Poor is anybody who has less than 200 zuz a year. Then you can take from tzedakah. If you have more than 200 zuz, then you are not considered poor, not considered rich. So give us a number. What's rich? Who's a chacham? Ezu chacham? Yeah, someone who knows all of Tanakh, all of Mishnayos, all of Shas and Poskim, all Rambam v'Nosei Kelim, Shulchan Aruch v'Nosei Kelim, all the Mishnayos, all the Yerushalmi. That's a smart guy. Ezu Gibor, guy who can bench press 400 pounds. Yeah, give me a definition. Everything here seems kind of like a little sketchy. Who's smart? Someone who learns from other people. Okay. So the answer is that the problem with being rich or strong is that it's relative. I grew up, we were in a small shul. There weren't too many gvirim. There was one guy. One guy had a successful business. He was the gvir. He wasn't wealthy by what we would talk about as being wealthy, but he was the gvir. You know why? Because he was the richest guy there. Yeah. Every now and then this happens. I would like to mention the community, but I always get flack afterwards with people saying, you could have been Motzi Laz on an entire community. Okay, but we know what we're talking about. Like a secret, but there are certain places where there is a concentration of wealthy people. And when you go to one of these shuls in this area, so you, a piker, you're worth a few million. There are people there worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You're nobody. In the shul I grew up with, you would be the biggest gvir around. So sometimes these younger gvirim go off and make their own shul so they could be somebody important in their shul. Then they're the osher. So who's rich? Rich goes by the situation you're in. Who's a chacham? It depends compared to who. Yeah. If you're at the collection of Gedolei Torah, you may not be that smart. But you go into a different venue, you might be. Rabbi Orlofsky tells the story about this guy who went to Aish for a short period of time, and he went back, and he was in his Reform temple for Rosh Hashanah, and a question came up. Should the person who's been blowing shofar all these years continue to blow the shofar? After all, he has a chazaka. But he's getting old and he doesn't blow so well. So there's a younger fellow who blows much better. Should we give it to him or should we keep it with the older person? The rabbi had no idea. Right? In the Reform movement, rabbis learned very little Judaism. It's mostly more like social work and things like that. So you don't have to know those things. I think it's a few hours of Talmud that you're obligated to learn, if I recall correctly. If I'm making a mistake, I apologize. I have to admit that I haven't really studied the requirements to become a Reform rabbi in a long time. So he didn't know. The rabbi had no idea. So he turned to this guy. He says, well, you were just studying in a yeshiva in Israel. You answer the question. Because you are the most knowledgeable Jew here. It's a scary reality, but it's a reality. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So how do you give a definition of what's rich and what's smart and what's strong? There's variables. Depends on the situation. Now, the reason I mention this is because I would like to focus on one of these. I was in America for a quick trip. My granddaughter's school was making a virtual dinner and they wanted me to be there live virtually. I'm not sure. I said, why can't I just do this on Zoom? He says, no, it'd be a much better quality if you're actually there. And so they flew in me and my wife so that we could film a virtual dinner in person. So, okay. Listen, I've been getting some comments recently where some people are noticing that perhaps the production level of Rabbi Orlofsky's show is not up to its usual high standards. And that's true because with the whole pandemic, I've been forced to turn to my own resources. And full disclosure, I've been filming this on Zoom, which has advantages and disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is the quality is not the greatest. And so therefore people are starting to notice. What can I tell you? Pavarotti, the famous opera star, said, if I don't practice for one day, I notice. If I don't practice for 2 days, the orchestra notices. And if I don't practice for 3 days, the audience notices. So I guess it's been going on long enough that people are starting to say, hey, I don't think he's really standing in front of his bookcase. Is that like a green screen? Yeah. So no, it's not. I don't know why you would think such a thing. Anyway, so it's everything is based on I mean, if you go all the way back, every now and then I get a letter from somebody who discovered the Rabbi Orlofsky show and goes back to episode 1. Episode 1, I was like sitting in a corner in my bedroom, with a little camera being filmed, and someone said to me it looked like a hostage video. Please come and get me. Help. When I was a kid, my parents had this dish towel that said, "Help, I'm being held prisoner in a Chinese laundry." That was funny. But anyway, so things relative. So I wanted to focus on one of these things. So I go into America, and I have a soft spot for science magazines, and so I picked up a copy of Scientific America and Scientific American. Sorry, I know the fact checkers will be after me. And Discover magazine and Psychology Today. Even though it's let's call it more of a pseudoscience, but I've always considered perhaps going into psychology, but it's going to take a lot of time. When I was working for Sameach, they were writing up the biographies of all the speakers. I remember Rabbi Wine went first. 2 days later, it was Rabbi Dr. Gottlieb, and 2 days later, it was me. And I said, "Well, I'm married and I live in Yerushalayim and I work at R Sameach." He said, "Anything else?" I said, "No, that's about it." So he said, "Well, do you have any degrees?" I said, "Yeah, I have a BA in psychology from Queens College." I was very impressed. I said, "Yes, my wife, she's not using it." And she said I could have it. So one of the Rosh Yeshiva turned to them and said, what do you do with someone like this?" That has been the question that has been asked many, many times. Yeah. Remember, Weinbach once said to me, "You're so effective, but what can we do about your big mouth?" Anyway, so okay. So psychology has always interested me. So Psychology Today, I picked up a copy. And what's the cover of the magazine? The Good Enough Life. And it's an article going through different aspects where you say, good enough. I don't have to be the perfect parent. I don't have to be in the perfect marriage. I don't have to have the perfect job. I don't have to be the perfect person. You could have good enough. And this obviously was a tremendous chiddush because it's a cover story in Psychology Today. So I want to say deeper than that, though, than just that. Whereas it's true that you don't need perfection, but it's more than that as well. And that is, whatever you need, you have. You have everything you need in your life, and if you don't have it, it's because you don't need it. And there's nothing that you need that you don't have. Yeah, all the tools are available for you to be able to accomplish what you need to accomplish in this world. Not everybody is the same. I pointed this out many times. Batman will not fight a Kryptonian. Batman is essentially psychotic sociopath who lost his mind when he saw his parents murdered in front of him. And since he's a billionaire, he's got enough money to buy himself all kinds of gadgets. And he runs around dressed up like a bat, beating up people. Okay? Issues, I would say. Yeah. But you put him up against somebody with real superpowers, forget about it. He's just a guy dressed up like a bat. I mean, what's he supposed to do? King Superman? Superman wouldn't go up against the Joker. Superman would fly at super speed, pick him up, drop him in prison, and that would be the end of it. All of his stupid little tricks. So Joker is good for the Batman because he's a nut dressed up in a costume, fighting another nut dressed up in a costume. So who does Superman always fight? General Zod from Krypton, broke out of the Phantom Zone. Yeah. So Superman fights another Kryptonian with superpowers. That makes sense. And Iron Man will fight other people in iron suits. Because you get all of the skills that you need to do what you need to do. I don't have to be the best at everything. I have to be the best at what I can be the best at. And it's so sad that people don't appreciate where their own skills lie, and they so often would like to have somebody else's life. Yeah, Rabbi Leff said on the pasuk, "Lo sachmoid," do not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's donkey. So he says, why are you comparing coveting the wife to the donkey? There's either something very wrong with your wife or something very good about the donkey. So he says, if I want my neighbor's house and I want my neighbor's wife and I want my neighbor's animals, it's because I want my neighbor's life. Why would I want to be me when I could be somebody else? And the answer is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you abilities, gave you gifts, things that you can do that nobody else can do. And so, isn't it worthless to sit around and wonder, what if I was somebody else? You know who's rich? I'm happy with what I got because this is what I need. And if I had more than this, who knows if I'd be able to handle it? Eliyahu Navi sees this really poor person and he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why is this guy in poverty? He's such a wonderful person. And he says, okay, Eliyahu, you're smarter than me. Here's a magic coin. Give it to him and he'll become rich. So he gives him the coin and fine, he takes the coin, buys himself a new set of clothes. People look at the clothes, they pay him 4 times the amount of what he paid for it because they think they're the nicest clothes. He goes and buys more suits before you know it, he's in the garment business. Then he buys a house, he's selling houses, making lots of money. And as he becomes wealthier and wealthier, he hasn't got time anymore for his avodas Hashem. And he becomes a not nice person. Because Baruch Hu says, so Eliyahu, what do you say? Smarter than me. He says, well, apparently not. He says, okay, get your coin back. So he asks the guy for the coin back, and bit by bit, he goes back to his life of poverty. And as he does, he becomes much more of a Yireh Shamayim, and he davens. He says, I'm not jealous of very wealthy people. I wouldn't mind being a little wealthy. I think that would upgrade my lifestyle a lot. Or not. I think I told this story already. I bought a Powerball when it was at $640 million. And my son bought one too. And I said, don't waste your money. I'm winning. And he says to me, Abba, why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu give it to you? What would you do with the money? So I thought right away, I said, well, the first thing I'll do is fix up my car. He says, you see what I mean? You don't even say I'll go out and buy myself a fancy car. I'll fix up my car. That's about as big as your she'ivas go. He says, come, let's play. You buy all your kids' apartments, you buy all your kids' cars. Now what? He said, I said, you could spend it? He goes, oh, in a heartbeat. Why? Because I basically have what I have. Would I change my lifestyle dramatically? I grew up with a father who grew up during the Depression. There was no food. Throwing out food was the worst sin you could possibly commit in my father's house. Second only to walking around the house in your socks. I never understood why. Walking around in your socks, my father would scream at us. What do you want me dead? So I didn't know. In the house of Shiva, you wear socks. And my father associated walking around in socks in the house of Shiva. Yeah. Gosh. There were other things that were, a little more important than that. There was, like punishment by death that we weren't so careful with. But, things like that. But throwing out food. My father went hungry. He knew what it was to be hungry, my father. Most people don't know what that means to be hungry. When I say hungry, I mean there's no food. We live today in an age where there's safety nets and things like that. There's some place you can go. So possibilities exist, but So I walk around my house and I see like my grandchildren will take an apple and take a bite out of it and just leave it there. So I cut it up and I'll eat it. We used to go out to eat. I never used to order anything. I knew I would eat everybody's leftovers. I'm going to go and order something, and then the rest of it goes in the garbage. My kids to this day, gosh, I got a bunch of kids in their 30s, They still remember we would go out to eat, and you weren't allowed to buy a soda. Now, the reason you weren't allowed to buy a soda is because I know you would order a can of soda, you would take 2 sips and leave it over, and it would kill me. You're wasting it. Drink water. So like one of my kids was like married, we went out to dinner and she's like, "Can I buy a soda?" That was like as extravagant as you could possibly imagine, because that's how I grew up. When I open up the little foil on top of the cottage cheese, I scrape it off. When I crack an egg, I go with my finger inside of the shell to make sure that I get out everything that's in it. Can't just throw it away. Throw it away, just waste it. That's not how I grew up. So I guess if you have like $500 million, most people like that aren't worried too much about what's left in the egg. But, every Shabbos we have some leftover challah slices. We put it into a plastic bag and put it into the freezer. Every now and then we have to clean out the freezer because there's no room anymore, And I gather together all the little bits of bread and I say, the bread collection from JCPenney. He says, well, no one's actually going to eat this stuff. I can't throw it away, but no one's going to eat it. I'm going to take out slices of old challah, and put it out for everybody. Fine, we're going to make French toast. At this point, I can make like 600, 700 pieces of sliced toast, of French toast with what's left. But it just doesn't happen. I could take it and make it into croutons, breadcrumbs. I could, make it into stuffing. But nobody ever does those things. Listen, it's not just because we grew up in the Depression. It's also a Polish Yid. That's how we all are. Let me tell a story of this Polish Yid. He's on his deathbed. He's surrounded by his families. He says, "Moshe, are you here?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Yassel, are you here?" He says, "Yeah." "Chaimka, are you here?" He says, "Yeah." "Then who's in the store?" My cousin who knew my grandfather. So she's close to my father's age, So she said it was a snowstorm once and he was taking the bus and she says, "Papa, why don't you take a taxi?" And he said, "Because every click of the meter is like a knife in my heart." So yeah, okay. What would I do with $500 million? Would I buy a new car? I'm still buy a new car. Yeah, give my other one to one of my kids. That's what I did with my last car. Yeah. But my father, his dream was to wear a new pair of socks every day. That was like wild. So when he got older, towards the end of his life, my mother would go out and buy boxes of socks. He'd wear them one time, and my mother would wash them and give them away. And every day he put on a new pair of socks. I said, that's what they call sock nachas. Yeah. But there are people always unhappy with what they have. If only I had this, if only I had that, if I had more. No, then you are a poor person. It doesn't matter if you have $500 million. If you're always feeling like I'm deprived, so you're a very poor person. And if you're happy with what you have, it says in Pirkei Avos, the more you own, the more you worry. I was learning once with an Avreich, and we left the house, and he didn't lock the door. I said, "You didn't lock the door." He goes, "What are you afraid of? Someone's going to come in? What are they going to take?" I hope they break in. They feel bad for me. They leave something behind. You know what I mean? But there are people always, I didn't get this. I didn't get that. Oh, what was this? What's that? What's happening here? Most people go out to eat, and the whole time they're looking around at every other table. What do they have? What is this? What's going on? I could have had this. I could have had that. I could have done this. I could have done that. What I have is what I need, and I'm happy with it. You ever see people circling around for a parking spot? They're pissed, like 3 parking spots, but it's not as close as it possibly could be. Let me get the best one. Go to the supermarket and get a cart. The wheels, not exactly, you should take it back, switch it, get another cart, They spend the whole time worried about what do I have and why is it not good enough? I'm a very poor person because you're lacking. It's in honey, and honey is lacking. You make do with what you have and you celebrate it. Yeah. I told this story, but it fits in over here too, I think. Yeah, I was online in the drugstore, and there was a couple of people behind me. It's pretty crowded. And he says to me, "How you doing?" I go, "Baruch Hashem." He says, "Really? Then why are you in the drugstore?" I said, "Baruch Hashem, they have medication for my diabetes, and Baruch Hashem, they have medication for my high blood pressure, and Baruch Hashem, they have medication." And all the Israelis are dying because Israelis never say a word about anything. And they're like, "You don't have to tell everybody." Yeah, I'm very happy. I had a bypass operation. My brother Gedalia had a bypass operation. Mitchell had a bypass operation. My brother Jason had a bypass operation, but by the time my mother passed away, he had already passed on. And we're there. We were 6 boys. One of them was Nefta, And my son was there, and he said to me, "You realize that if this was taking place 50 years ago, there'd only be 2 of you left, because they didn't have bypass operations 50 years ago. That's it." My friend Dovid Wilner came to visit me when I was in the hospital after my heart attack and bypass, and he said, "My grandfather had a heart condition. He had a heart attack. They put him in the hospital. They let him stay till he rests up. They send him home. He has another heart attack. And this keeps happening until he dies. There was nothing they could do. They couldn't unblock arteries. They cut you open and take out a vein from your leg and then cut open your chest, and they reroute it around to get blood to your heart." Science fiction. And the medications that we've come up with and the things that we're able to do. You know how many kids used to die of the measles and diphtheria and it's unbelievable. We have so much. But there's this attitude today that we're always lacking. I don't have this and I don't have that. And I didn't get this, I didn't get that. I told the story, I was in Telz. Where she was about to make Kiddush, puts on the cup, walks to the dining room. He sees this, one of the Bachram already took a piece of cake and put it on his plate. He says, "You need dafka that piece? Or you're just afraid you won't get a piece of cake? Put it back. I guarantee you'll get a piece of cake." I don't like to stay for Kiddushin as a rule, because people attack it like they've never seen food before in their lives. It's mafchid to a larger group of Jews. When Senator Lieberman was running for vice president with Al Gore, so he was in a shul on Shabbos in Miami, and afterwards they're having a reception for him. So they took him out before the end of davening, and they brought him upstairs to the Kiddush. The Secret Service people, took care of the room, secured the perimeter. Yeah, we have the vice president candidate over here. Yes, I believe it. Okay, and we're davening ends, and they hear this thundering on the stairs. I don't know what's going to happen. So they come over, form a phalanx around their man, and all the people run into the room, go right past them to the food. Senator Schmenator, this chopped liver. So sometimes when I am at a Kiddush or at a buffet, everybody runs. And my host or whoever I'm with will say, "Aren't you going to get some food?" And I said, "No, eventually people will take enough that they're satisfied, and almost always there's enough food. On rare occasions, they run out of something, but there's almost always enough food. And I can go after the mob has settled down to eat the spoils of their victory. I'll go and get a plate. Do I really need to push and shove someone for some cold cuts? Okay, cocktail franks. That's a different story. Okay, maybe I would kill somebody for that. But most of the stuff. Well, where are you going? What are you worried about? You'll get. Don't worry, you'll get. People get so nervous. I'm not going to get. I'm going to be left out. Don't worry. There's whatever you're supposed to get in this world, you're going to get. And sometimes it's mazel. I've met some people who are not among the brightest people I've ever met, who are very wealthy. I know some very smart people who are not. Gemara says when it comes to wealth, it's mazel. So you know how much is enough? Ezu Ashir, not someone with $40 billion. Someone's happy with what he has. If he's happy with what he has, then what am I driving myself crazy for? The famous story of this guy who had a big villa on the beach. And he sees this guy with a little fishing boat. And he pulled it up onto the sand, and he's lying in the sand, sunning himself. The guy says, "What are you doing? There's still plenty of hours left." He says, "Yeah, I caught enough fish for today." He says, "So work a little harder, you'll get more fish." And then what will happen? He says, "Then you could buy another boat, hire more people. And then eventually you'll have a fleet of boats. You'll have a whole fishing company. And then you'll have a lot of money. And then you can sit around all day and do nothing." I figured out how to do that already. I think I said this over in the past. Yeah, 1973. I went to stay in Eretz Yisrael, and on the plane back, El Al used to have these big screens, and they used to show films, and our flight didn't have enough charedim to actually cover it over with blankets. So yeah. So the film was playing. I didn't put on my earphones, but there were subtitles, Anyway, so Robert Redford wants to do the big sting. Paul Newman says, "Listen, we're going to pick our mark. We're going to figure out how much we're going to get out of him, and that's it. And I don't want to hear anybody afterwards saying it's not enough, because that's all you're going to get, and you better be happy with it." I thought, what a Musa Haskell. You're going to get what you're going to get, and you better be happy with it, because that's all you get. All you can do is complain. I didn't get enough. Why can't I get more? Why wasn't I given this? Why didn't I get that? Why? Because you're given everything in this world that you need. And that's it. You have to do the best you can with the tools that you have to be able to manage. Mentioned this many times. I have many, many learning disabilities. Basically, I was written off as a kid. And one of my Rosh Yeshiva once said to one of my employers, says, "Is he effective?" I says, "Yeah." He goes, "I never thought he'd amount to anything." No, I don't blame him. I probably would have thought the same. I did think the same. Surprised myself. I wasn't prepared to let my limitations define me. And so if you say all the things I don't have, then you're a very poor person. You know what a wealthy person is? A person who recognizes I have everything I need. Tomvim Nishlam. I'm fine. Couldn't you have more? Yeah, I could have more. Yeah. Well, I like a new car? Sure, I'd love a new car. Yeah, it's dented, it's scratched, when you first get the car, it has that new car smell, and then after a while it has the, grandchildren being sick in the back smell to it, Ay. But obviously, if I was meant to have one, I would have one, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu will give you everything that's coming to you, and you won't miss out on anything in this world. If a person could understand that, they'd have a much better life. And psychology today just figured it out. They said, if you're content with what you have, then you can have a much happier life. And everything doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to get everything that you want. So Mitzvah Hashem, we should know what it is that we need, not what we want. And if we work to get those things, be a lot happier in life. People who need, who want, who are always feeling disadvantaged. Doesn't matter how much money they have, they're poor people. Lord, who made the lion and the lamb, you decreed I should be what I am. Would it spoil some vast eternal plan? Yeah, probably. So you are who you are, or in the words of Popeye, I am what I am. And take everything Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you and use it well. Use it well. And in Mitzvah Hashem, everyone will go on to have a happy, happy life. And that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about this show, go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment on the episode. You can send me an email. You can sponsor an episode. You can be all that you can be. Anything that you want, you can get at that website. Happiness itself is just waiting right there. That's it for this week. This is Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.